All right, so moving into the next part of this, we are going to now include some jumping in our game. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that my hero is at the bottom. So I'm going to do a couple things in here. One thing is I set my hero, their position to be the height. So height in this case is actually the height of the entire window. You do have access to that as a variable called height. We set my position to be equal to, same thing, just for now. I could probably, yeah, there's a few different ways I can do this. I'm going to set my velocity to be 0 for now, and I'm also going to set my gravity to be 0. So shouldn't be moving. Hopefully this will make it appear at the bottom of the screen, just kind of sitting there. Good. Okay, so now what I want to do is when I hit spacebar, I want this character to jump in the air. What we're going to do to take care of this is we're actually going to make a Boolean variable called isJumping. Okay, so isJumping is going to just capture, when we hit spacebar, we are going to set isJumping to be true, and we're going to be constantly checking to see if isJumping is true to see whether we should be having them move up in the air. And basically we'll set it so like when you hit spacebar, isJumping will be true while you're up in the air, and then once you actually get into the air, isJumping will get turned to false. We'll kind of see how that works in just a moment. All right, so we're going to set, first thing we need to do is we need to we're going to add in our keyPressed method. And we're going to say if key is equal to space, then we're going to say that isJumping is going to be set to true. Okay, now we need to add something into our update. When we mess with our character, we need to check to see if isJumping is true. Technically, we don't really need to have this equals true thing here because this is literally like a Boolean value. It literally is true by itself. So you could really just delete this and it would work totally fine. So I'm going to leave that out. Just saying if this thing is true, then what do we need to do? So what we're going to do here is we want to set our velocity. Our velocity right now is 0. What we want to do is we want to set this value. We want to set our velocity to be of negative value in the y, because if it's negative, that means our character is jumping up. Okay, so we're going to say in here, we're going to try velocity dot y is going to be equal to it. We're going to make a separate variable up here because this might be interesting to mess around with later. Let's make it a float. We're going to call it jump power. We're going to say this is going to be, I know I've done this before, so I'm just going to say it's 25. Seems like a good value. We put in like 10. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, my velocity, the y part of my velocity, I'm going to set it equal to whatever my jump power was. Let's just see how that's going to work. Let's add our acceleration back in, and let's just see how this is going to work for right now, because I think we should be really pretty close to making this work. Oh, it's going to have us drop all the way down. Okay, so you can see like it's working. It's kind of working. Not too bad. Let's see. Can we jump? Oh, I can't quite jump yet because we're kind of accelerating through the floor. So we also need to add something in here that we're going to check to see, make sure that we're not having our thing go through the floor. We're going to do that down here in our position down here. We're going to say that if hero their y value, and we could do this a couple different ways. If this y value is greater than or equal to the height of the entire screen minus well, we have to have like the circle. Here's the floor. So we want it to be like, if that y value is like at the floor or further down, we shouldn't mess with the y value. The y value is just going to be 0. So we're going to say it's going to be height, and then it needs to be the center, which is our y, and then it's going to be minus the radius of our circle. So I'm going to say hero.getWidth. Technically, it could be either way, get width or get height, like that. Okay, so if that thing is true, then our velocity y, we should just set the position to be we should just kind of fix our position there. We should say, let's see. We should probably say hero dot, I'm trying to think how we could do this. I think we could just, maybe if I put this down here and do that a little bit above, then I could just say position is going to be, the y part is going to be equal to height minus this value. That should keep us at the bottom of this thing, I believe. Okay, good. Oh, space is in, not working so far. I'm gonna update this a little bit more. Oh, I just realized I did something stupid. I was wondering why this wasn't working. I've set my velocity to be jump power, but that means that if my jump power is a positive value, so I'm setting my velocity to be a positive value, that means I'm jumping downwards. So actually I want to set this to be the opposite. I want to set this to be the inverse. This should at least be working a little bit better than it was. Still not quite. So I messed around with it a little bit. I got rid of this part. I think this was causing our thing to just constantly be set to here. I think I did mess with that value a little bit here. But this now, I think I don't need, I tried to see if that would fix it. I did set my jump power down. It was at 25. I set it to 10 a little bit. So let's see if that works a little bit better here. But now we can see that our hero is jumping way up. Let's see. I think with 10, it shouldn't be jumping that far off the roof. I think it was, I just had it where it wasn't doing quite that. Let's see if I change this to 5. So acceleration should be decreasing. Let's see, why is this not? Ah, okay, I realized what I did. Okay, and maybe you figured this out. So I did a little bit of debugging in here. So I just added in some print statements because I really want to see like what was the velocity and what was the acceleration while I'm doing this. And when I hit space, I'm doing this, and it seems like the velocity, it looks like it's kind of traveling up at just a steady pace. And we can look in here so we can see that this is the velocity and then this is the acceleration. There's actually a third value in here for like, hey, like this is in 3D, we could move in like X, Y, and also Z, but we won't worry about that too much. Basically, what we can see in here is like velocity is negative 4.8 and this was 0.2. But it was never changing. Like this should be decreasing as we go through these loops. And what I realized what I need to say in here is that critical piece in here is I need to say is jumping is false, because otherwise, as I loop through here, if is jumping is true, it's just constantly going to be setting this jump power. But I need to say only do that one time. Set this velocity for a second, or just like instantly, and then say is jumping is going to be false. And then we can try and run that again. And we should see, there we go, working a little bit better. Let's take this back into here. Let's see if that's going to, I think I still have to fix that a little bit. Yeah, that's still not quite working. Let's delete this, get rid of our debugging here. Mostly working okay, mostly working okay. Let's add in, I do want to go back to my jump power being 25. I think that adds a pretty fun kind of jump to this. Did I delete? And let's comment this part out. All right, so if we go back into this and we hit play, thing's gonna shoot way off the screen, but wait for it, it's gonna come back down eventually. Let's see, my acceleration is like 0.2. I mean, you could like modify, you can mess around with these numbers. Maybe I set this to 12. You can change this, so we hit space, it's gonna go up. This was kind of fun, is that it's actually, you can just keep hitting space and you can do like double jumps. It's definitely some things you can mess around with in that. I'm going to, so maybe you like that, that's what you want to do in your game. I'm going to change this so that I'm going to have it so that you can only jump once, and then when you come back down to the ground, then you'll be able to jump again. So I'll add that into the code next. Actually, I also want to do, the first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm going to play around this a little bit so our video's not 8 minutes already, so that we don't fall through the ground. But let me code that out real quick. All right, I play around these values a little bit to try and get this to work. It mostly works. There's just, I had to mess with these a little bit to say, I think if I do it like this, it mostly works. It's not working at all. I had this working just a second ago. I might have erased too much stuff. Seems like the best option. It does kind of like have like a little bit of jitter to it. So you might want to play around with that to see if you can't get this to be a little better than that. Okay, I'm getting to the end of my time here. Let's see. I do want to add one last thing in here. I want to make sure that this thing, that we can't really do double jumps. I mean, that could be fun for a game if you're doing like a Flappy Bird game. That might be fun. But what we also want to do in here is we only want to set this to be true if we're at the bottom of the screen. So we're also going to add in like this line of code. I think we can just put that right in here. And that should mean that we can only call is jumping. We can only press our jump button basically when we're touching the bottom of the screen. So most of these values, ugh. So play around with this for a minute while the video is paused, and I got this to work. So I'll end up just pushing the code up here. I don't know if I'm necessarily be able to go through all the different little tweaks I made here to make this work. I was trying to identify a couple of ones that I had. First thing that I was messing up was I was checking in here. I think I was doing hero.getY, but there's some kind of weirdness in here of like when we are taking our position and actually updating the hero's Y value with the position Y. So just by modifying this a little bit, I put position Y here. So you don't need to worry about the details too much. I will post this code in the description below. So even if you don't have this, even if you don't see the changes, you can look through the code and hopefully make sense of what happened, or at least add it into your own code. It's because like most of we had the ideas right. It was just that tiny little thing of like at each kind of loop through here, at each frame, kind of what is where, what values are what. It's just like a little slight tweaking in there. But using this code, we now have jump, just like we promised. Let's see. Some other things I did add in here. I wanted to check and say that I think I included this to make sure that you weren't getting a double jump. I think these are both just kind of doing the same thing, um, but allowing us to just kind of double check and make sure that our hero is not accidentally double jumping. Let me see if I delete this. You can watch stop the video right now. I just want to test one thing out. So I feel like that one bit of code probably isn't necessary. Yeah. So there we go. Okay, so we got some jumping, we got some realistic gravity in there. Hopefully you learned some stuff about like just using velocity, gravity, and position kind of all together. Something you can incorporate in your code. There's a ton of other things you can do out there. I do have other set of videos that I can share with you, not for me, but that somebody else created that uses this into more detail. So I'll also include that in the description below.